infinite potential and infinite mastery. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Quantum Conversation QCTV. It's our video live stream, and I am here with Lori Spagna, who is actually a beautiful light worker and a DNA activator, as well as an animal communicator. She has a lot of wisdom to share with us today, and this is really one of mastery and empowerment. So get ready as we talk about how we claim our godhood. Lori, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about our connection today, sharing with everybody.
Yes, let's check in with you about the current energies. We have all been feeling it. It's been crazy. And here it is, the fall equinox, September equinox. And it was one of balance and harmony, but yet it looked out in the world as if it was really interesting, as it was really challenging people to either be in this higher level of balance and harmony, the flow, and if not, it would be a little dicey or frictiony. What do you feel is happening, these current energies?
Well, I mean, we just went through the eye of the needle with that Lion's Gate and those 2 eclipses we had over the summer. And so now we're on the other side of the portal. And so what people should be feeling, ideally, you know, omitting the word should, not to shit on people, but is now a stabilization, a balancing. Like, I know for me, this week in particular, in the last few weeks, have been really this leveling up to where I knew I was leveling up to. I kind of knew it. It's sort of like a, and now there was an integration time after that portal, that Lion's Gate of August 8th. For that month, that's the first month after that portal. But now it's like, to me, there's a huge spaciousness now. The spaciousness is like, okay, you're here. There's nothing to catch your breath on. There's more this expansion into, okay, you're here. Now what? So this leveling up should start to feel very integrated now, kind of complete, where it's almost like you get to the mountaintop and you're like, okay, now what? That kind of thing, because it's a new beginning. It's another new beginning. So while in linear time, maybe we're looking at the end of a calendar year, in reality, it's a brand new beginning. It's a new fresh start, because those of us who have leveled up, who are here now in this new earth paradigm, this new earth reality, we're literally claiming the gifts that we've been accumulating, and without any of the baggage that we've been letting go of. And so this expansion now is letting us choose something new, but it's giving us the breath, the expansive space to say, okay, I'm ready. So that's where I see us at now. I mean, that window was pretty tough. It was pretty bumpy. You know, like a lot of people really were definitely challenged to drop a lot of baggage and release it, because that was a major bifurcation. You know, that was a major separation of frequencies, of vibratory states. So if you were dense dropping stuff off, you were dropping off those old timeline realities, and as you were also calling forward home the true soul essence of who you are, you, all of us, that part was all clarified, purified, cleared of that density that we were dropping off. And that density was also just reintegrating into source, right? So the bifurcation was like, oh, that's no longer who I am. And all those old timeline realities, I'm done with them. All those old aspects that don't resonate with who I'm about to become, we are now, that's just gone. Does that make sense? And is that making sense with your experience?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, with the collective in our community, we do feel people stepping forward with new services, and really, even in my own way, it's like, wow, just doing things in a different way, in more of a mobilization, right?
Yes.
A mobilization really time to get things going, to empower the new earth leader,
Yes.
step in and create new solutions.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So um, I want to talk really too about just people stepping up and doing what we can in one way, and it's supporting the voice out there, the voice of change. And so
Yes.
here's a quick little plug. I don't care whose side we are, or if we're partisan politics, but there's a voice of change, Marianne Williamson, and she
Mhm.
is a beautiful voice to at least reach the platform to take the whole conversation to a higher level. So I just had to say something right there because it's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah. I
Wonderful.
mean, I think it's important that you say it that way too, because I think what's so valuable is that in the light worker community, our highest truth, this is one I know we all agree, is that what we want is what is for the highest and most benevolent best for all of humanity. And if we perceive that to be one particular candidate or another, that's fine. But in truth, if we resonate with that truth is that we all want that which is for the highest and most benevolent best of all of Earth, all of humanity, all humans, all plants, all minerals, all animals. That united front will allow the highest and best candidate to come forward. If it's Marianne Williamson, I'm all over that. And I'm sure that we all can recognize that that's what we're looking for. And that is really, this new leadership is definitely coming up in a huge way, because starting to see, it's true, we're claiming gifts that we didn't even know we had. That's really is what's stepping into our godhood. So wherever we're starting to recognize those aspects of ourselves that just really have a higher calling as leaders of the new paradigm, it doesn't matter how we step out. It just matters that we step out. It matters that we are understanding this common thread of in service and contribution to the betterment of humanity, ideally with harm to none. Like the highest and best, to me, highest and most benevolent best just holds that as true. Harm to none. Highest and most benevolent best for all. Now that united front is that single statement is such a unifying statement, because then what we have is laws of the universe come in and they start saying, okay, let's just law of synchronicity comes in, law of cause and effect, law of free will. Every law starts coming in with agreement with that and organizes all that is and says, make it so. That's simple. So we get out of the egoic identification with what is good. I'm Trump, I'm this, I'm president, I'm that, blah, blah, whatever it is. And we just start, it's unifying. Does that make sense?
Yes, unification is the word. That's the operative word. It's unity. And
Yes.
so, again, we're not here to talk anything about it, but it's the higher conversation, no matter who you support. But
Yeah.
the point is, get out there and do something in that way and make that
Yes.
change.
Yeah.
But another way that we can make great change is really not be distracted by that. We be aware, but we come within and activate the DNA. And that's what you are all
Mhm.
about. And so we've got a lot of tools, and we're going to cover some areas today in our topics because they're fascinating. We have been talking about the crystal kingdom. So let's start there, Lori.
Yes.
The
My
crystal
favorite.
kingdom, it is, crystals have a consciousness.
Yeah. Well, so let's understand that the crystals, just like Mother Earth, we know there's consciousness in everything. But what's fascinating about the crystals is we know they're made up of sacred geometrical patterns, but they're non-conforming in that sense. In other words, they don't bend or change for us. We morph to them because they're such perfect sacred geometrical patterns. So when you start working with a crystal in some way, shape, or form, your physiology, your consciousness, whoever you are, is going to adapt to the consciousness of the crystal. And this perfection that's contained within the crystal, these perfect patterns, actually heal us and help us to come into alignment with these patterns of perfection of consciousness. So essentially the crystals, and this is what we were saying earlier, the crystals are storing up information in forms of energy and vibration from other timeline experiences. In other words, you could go back to the timeline of Atlantis, for example. So Timeline of Atlantis is an unresolved timeline playing out right now on planet Earth. That's why you were seeing all this 5G stuff, 5G grid. And that's why you're hearing so many people rise up basically in fear, even though it might not look like fear, because some of them are rising up in leadership positions, which is good, to talk about the problems of this 5G grid, for example. So going back to the crystals, they're storing up records in this example of the Atlantean timelines where these issues were not resolved. So when we work with crystals, for example, a crystalline grid, the crystal grid, which is the 5D grid of Mother Earth, and when we anchor and align with that 5D grid, our consciousness starts to conform and adapt and align with the higher knowing that contains the gifts, for example, from this Atlantean timeline, so that we don't recreate it and so that we can resolve it. So in other words, to say that the world's going to go really bad when the 5G grid is ignited, that's an Atlantean timeline playing out. That's a parallel reality that's unresolved. And that also is basically asking us to find within us the consciousness where we have the solutions and the resolutions. These crystals are a perfect example of where those solutions are lying dormant. This is just one example. Does this make sense?
So talk a little bit more about the 5G and how crystals, are you saying that the crystals counteract that, or how do you deal with that?
That is true. But what I'm saying is that if you talk about the consciousness of crystals, in this example that I went to, these crystals are containing the solutions, some of which is the 5D grid that grid workers have been working on for, easily 20 years. That these solutions of the crystals are contained in there. So the solutions in this example of the Atlantean timeline. So the Atlantean timeline is what we call an Armageddon timeline, a 9/11 scenario, end of world, end of game, game over. And because that timeline is unresolved and all of the drama, the trauma, the chaos, the death of that timeline is unresolved for humanity, because so many people perished, entire civilizations of that Atlantean timeline. From that timeline, the crystals were embedded in the earth with the solutions from that timeline so that we would not have to recreate it. So when we learn to work with the crystals, this is just one example. The crystals have the solutions for us to resolve those issues. Now, part of it is the DNA. Why? Because the trauma from that timeline, including what we call Armageddon programs, end of game scenario programs, those are codes corrupted in the first two strands of DNA, because the first two strands of DNA carry corrupted codes of unresolved issues from our ancestors. So when we start working with the crystals, crystals can activate and awaken the parts of us that are dormant, that know how to resolve these issues, and simultaneously help us to heal and resolve and clear the corrupted programming in the DNA that would make us believe and perceive that we're going to extinguish ourselves from, say, a 5G grid. So when you hear people talking up about the 5G grid, a lot of times what's going on is they're functioning from the timeline of consciousness. If they're saying, oh my God, this is going to kill us all, they're functioning from the timeline of consciousness, the Atlantean timeline, with an Armageddon program, an end of game scenario program, corrupted DNA. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying that the solution is to resolve it. I'm saying that because ultimately, if you're in a dream, which we are, it doesn't mean that reality doesn't exist. It means that reality is not meant to be the end of game in this reality. Does that make sense?
Yes, and don't come from fear. Don't act out of fear.
Because when people are talking about, world leaders are talking about how horrible these 5G grids are, what they're really unaware of is the solutions which are already available to us. So the crystalline consciousness is containing, and by the way, it's in our DNA too. You don't have to just work with crystals.
It's
It's
our
just crystals
crystalline
have that
DNA.
solution because they were embedded from that Atlantean timeline in this example that I'm using. But just to more generalize the crystals are storing up codes and sacred geometries. Without question, they're able to help us and facilitate us in activating dormant DNA, particularly the other 10 strands that when we refer to dormant DNA, we're first referring to the 10 strands, which are already in the physical, already valid in the physical world, because the first 10 strands, the reason that they're valid in the physical world, and science, credible science knows they're real and they're there, is because enough humans have activated enough of our dormant DNA that the physical world is showing us, yeah, that's real, right? The other dormant DNA, which we know is etheric, in other words, beyond 12 strands into, 144, 244, that's all etheric. The reason it's not physical yet, okay, yes, we could say there's not equipment yet in the physical world to be able to see it, but more, the reason it's not physical yet is that not enough humans have activated beyond the first 12 strands and anchored it into their physical bodies for it to be revealed as real in the physical world. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I'm going to ask then, how would we use, because there's so many of us, we've got crystals everywhere. We can just pick any one of them. How could we use a crystal and start working with the crystal to download the codes? I know there's probably different ways, but is there one or some way that we could work with the crystal that way?
Well, let me say, I can give you the easiest, most basic way to start working with the crystal, but I just want to say this about codes in the DNA. What I've discovered, in fact, at my most recent visit to Arkansas, where I had I led a retreat there, we were given, and I've had this before in my DNA activation calls, but never live with a group like that. We were given royal codes, and these royal codes are in our DNA. And I was told through my working with the codes, I don't want to bypass your question. I have it in my mind to tell you how to activate.
No, it's cool. It's very cool.
But I was told that these royal codes are codes that previously, in terms of linear time for humanity, in order to get your royal codes, you actually had to physically die, make your way through 4D, which is a non-physical realm, and make your way, or through the Bardos, if you're into ancient, more, Tibetan and Buddhism types of teachings, into higher realms of consciousness, but you were non-physical, and basically claim your role on the seat of throne next to God, so to speak, and then you would get your royal codes. Now, the fact that we were being given them and activated, and like I said, I had already activated them within me, but I never was able to give them like that in that group. The fact that we were able to claim them while we were in physical bodies alive, this is what I was told through my team and higher consciousness, is astounding for humanity at this time, the level that we've achieved. And that was because we, even in that group, had activated enough of our consciousness from working with the crystals in that group. By doing just the practices, the basic practice that I can share right now with this group. So in other words, my point is the idea that we can just start activating codes. We have a certain amount of basic fundamental work that's important for us to do. Uh-oh, what happened?
You're still here.
Is my screen showing?
Yes.
Okay, well, I want that closed. So let me just, I don't know what to do to close that. Hold on. Exit full screen.
Okay, wow, that's fascinating.
Well, I don't want to miss out on what I was saying there because that was good. So, okay.
Yeah.
So now my screen's not showing anymore, right? I'm good, right?
Yeah, you're
I don't know why that just happened. I wasn't even touching my screen. So, okay, but anyhow, where was I? Yeah.
These royal codes.
This is what's so important. You see, we're community here, Loren, our community, your community, our shared community is very advanced.
Yes.
For the most part. So we can claim this, but it's important to understand for people who listen it's not like you suddenly claim it overnight. You know, this is years of work, but now people can claim it faster and faster, more and more. So it's not something to think like, oh, I just meditate with a crystal and I get it. But at the same time, understand this is what eventually does happen in whatever timing is right for the individual. So that said, these are the most basic practice. Go get some Lemurian crystals. I wish I had them.
Yes, Lemurian seed crystals.
I mean, I should show you some of the ones we dug out of the ground. It's incredible. And people ask, well, do these crystals want to be dug out of the ground? And what people don't really understand is that the whole crystal thing is, the crystals are in that area of the country, the United States, right down where Arkansas is, because that's like the two sides of like Lemuria, Atlantis, on either side of the continental United States in that area. So this is like the middle ground, right? Yeah. Makes sense geographically. Mm-hmm. And even down into Brazil, where you have the Brazilian crystals. It's a different strain of crystals, but still. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Why they're geographically there?
It's a crystal corridor, yes.
Right, the crystal corridor. And then also to understand that that location has been, the people who live there are basically protectors of that. They're the guardians of that land. And it's important to understand that the reason it's remained relatively impoverished, so to speak, largely around that area, is because the crystals, the vibration there will not allow the old paradigm to be harmonious with it. So you can't go there just to exploit it. You can't go there and build these massive 3D structures because the crystalline consciousness is too high vibration for that old paradigm to be built up there. Does that make sense? It's protection.
Yes, I love that. You know, the whole vein of quartz crystal goes through Lake Washita, and you know, you can buy the water, Mountain Spring Valley water, I believe, that you can buy at your Sprouts or you know, your natural grocers. But beautiful. Okay, so when you
all right, so let me give you the little practice though, and then we can. There's so many other things we can talk about. We want to talk more about the DNA and cleaning up more of our DNA and stuff too. Okay. But just get yourself a Lemurian crystal like this. I mean, really, a great crystal. That's interesting. It doesn't get picked up on the screen unless it's in front of me.
Well, I want to say one thing about the Lemurian seed crystal. Some have asked, how do you recognize it? Even though in the stores they say it is Lemurian seed crystal. And that is because they've got ridges, they've got striations, right? How else? I mean, that's really
these ridges here, these lines are codes. Mm-hmm. Those are not codes, records. So those are records, just like the records in a tree. If you look at the inside of a tree, you can see, like, you know, the story of that tree, the environment, the food it fed, the underground root system. A geologist can know about that from studying the tree. Well, okay, we're the crystal workers. Okay, so we can start knowing, when we know how to meditate and activate and work with these crystals, we can start getting up information about the history of Earth. So these are records. That's what all these lines are. Then lots of crystals, this one doesn't have it, but lots of the crystals I have codes, key codes in them. Some of them have windows. This is a little kind of window in there. I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, they all have different.
What would the key codes look like in a crystal?
They're keys. I have them in my house. I just don't have them in arm's reach. But they're keys, literally, where you can stick a finger, or it's like
an indentation,
a groove that's naturally there.
Okay.
It's not like a broken groove. It's like where the crystal itself let go of its whatever it was parented to.
All right, here's one. Here's a really cool one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And my finger fits, right? That's like a perfect fit for me.
Yes.
And there's a memory.
Those have some, that's a key. So when you think of that as a key, if you just think of like, okay, I've got this key, and this is how I taught it on my retreat. Imagine that the key that you have, you walked into the car dealership and someone hands you a key and goes, okay, whatever key this fits, that car is yours. You're the lucky winner. Well, it's like that with the crystal, only you're not getting a car, you're getting some kind of gift. that key is holding you to helping you to unlock that the crystal is containing. So you have to kind of know how to unlock it, but meditating with the crystals is a huge way to learn that. And just by rubbing your finger along these lines and asking, you know, instill your consciousness. What would you like to share with me? Just that alone. Allowing the consciousness of the crystal to instill its consciousness in you, to help you to learn. And of course, you have to be a student of the crystal, which that's sometimes challenging for us, right? Because our adult doesn't want to sit there and be patient and let it show us or reveal to us. We want the answers the way we want them. But on this call, you know, in this group, enough of us are advanced enough, I think, to have the divine timing, the divine willingness to not expect it exactly how, when, and the way we want it, right? Just allow it to reveal itself to us in whatever way, shape, time that is, right?
Yes.
So that's one way to work with the crystals. The other thing is just to put it on your body, wherever, usually chakra points, and really breathe in the consciousness, breathe in the light patterns, breathe in the codes, breathe it in through the energy center of that body part. And it's a form of meditation too, but you're literally taking it in. Because understand, this is divine perfection, perfect codes. It's not going to hurt your body. This is the highest frequency that exists in the physical world. There's nothing that in the physical world that has a higher frequency, higher vibration than this. Nothing. Not gold, not platinum, this. That's news, right? That's worth the price of admission right there, guys. So, make sense?
Oh my goodness, that's why we're drawn to crystals. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So you also mentioned anchoring this new DNA. How do we anchor it? The etheric DNA. Is that what you're saying? We anchor
Yeah.
it? Okay.
So I know we talked about this on our last show, but just for anyone who might not have heard this, let's say the basics here, right? We know that the first two strands, disappearing hand, the
Yes,
first
it's
two
very
strands
cool.
of DNA. Oh my God, I just want to say this. So I live in Florida, and this happened also actually in Arkansas in the crystal bed when I was swimming in that water in the lake.
Like wash. Oh
I would
goodness.
come out and both my arms were just covered. It was so wild because my arms were covered in like sparkle water crystals, perfect crystals of water, but it was like not the water droplets. It was the crystalline DNA activations revealing itself through the skin, and the water was reflecting it with the light. And I could see perfect geometrical patterns. It was incredible. This is what happens when we start working with this stuff and activating it. So, because this is the light body expressing, and the perfect sacred geometrical patterns that are in our DNA that our bodies are conforming to as we activate this. And it was just, I could see it. It was like, okay, yeah, you could say, well, it's just water, light, sun reflecting, but no, it was coming from the skin, perfect patterns of geometry. It was incredible. Incredible. So this is in us, all of us, because we're changing. Our bodies are changing, and we're leveling up at such an accelerated rate. And this is all post gateway. You know, this is just the last couple of months we're starting to see this more in ourselves. So anyway, but the DNA, let's go back to the DNA. So we know, I mean, if anyone who's listened to me, you know, the first two strands are the records of your ancestors, and they're the records of our history, so to speak, in terms of linear time. So all dis-ease that's in the DNA, all lack, poverty consciousness, issues of inferiority, issues of lack of self-worth, even the good stuff, beauty, you know, value, everything that's in the first two strands of DNA, which is basically the way you've been living up until the last few years, right? Post 2012, really. That's the first two strands of DNA. So if you're carrying something from the ancestors, like a disease, like diabetes or depression or mental health disorder, or money issues, or maybe you're a woman who's spent a lot of your time single and you feel like you don't have a partner, can't find your partner, that kind of stuff. That's from your other lifetimes and your ancestors, parallel lifetimes, which we could call past lifetimes. And the way you're living and the patterns that perhaps you're not necessarily liking the most, even the patterns you do like, that do work for you. That's your first two strands. And that's stuff you inherited through your lineage. Yeah. So if it's not working for you, the job is to identify it in the DNA and clear it out, and ideally clear it out through the lineage. And very important to understand why that was coded into the DNA, because it's typically like a present that's been waiting to be unwrapped. You just don't know what's in there. And you foolishly, not foolishly as a word, but like we were brainwashed, or we brainwashed ourselves to believe that that was bad, corrupted stuff, which it is kind of. Like nobody wants diabetes, nobody wants cancer, nobody wants breast cancer. But like, for example, the most basic, easy thing, you know, if you have cancer, the gift of cancer is learning to forgive. I mean, literally, you cannot have cancer if you fully embodied forgiveness. That is the gift of cancer. So when a person has cancer, it's literally asking them on all levels of their body and being, and likely through their ancestors, to really claim the gifts of forgiveness. And that may be hard for people to hear in some cases, because a lot of people could say, well, I know how to forgive. But somewhere in your registry, somewhere there's something corrupted in the DNA. If you have cancer, that's saying you haven't fully claimed the gifts. That can all be cleared out now. Everything is healable. The only thing that's not healable, as far as I'm concerned, is when a person or an animal has crossed a certain point in what we call the death doorway, where they've already made a choice. And I call that an exit stage left program, or a death doorway program, or suicidal program. Now, by the way, those can be cleared out too if they haven't already. Right? So when you have, like, for example, smoking addiction, if someone's any form of addiction, especially smoking, drinking, or drugs, part of why that's so hard to clear is because there's a suicide program running, a death wish program in the first two strands of DNA, which is probably linked to the ancestors, somewhere where someone committed suicide, passed it down through the generations. The trauma of it needs to be cleared and resolved. That stuff can be cleaned out of the DNA relatively effortlessly these days for someone who knows how to do it. I mean, I'm one of them. I know how to do it. And you don't have to keep reliving it. Ridiculous. Not part of our future. Make sense?
Yes.
If only humanity could understand how easy this stuff is. I don't mean to make it. It's not. It wasn't easy to learn it. Wasn't easy to go through it. But now that I'm on the other side of the portal, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what all that was. Oh, all that pain, all that misery, all that. So now I snap, snap, snap. You know what I mean? Okay. I don't mean to sound like an ego about it, but that's just, it is. It's on the other side of it. You're like, oh yeah, that's so easy. Why? Is that there does not have to be suffering anymore like this on planet Earth. So that's the first two strands. Yeah. And
Yes.
everything that's coded in there, all the issues we have, it's time to clean it out. Unnecessary. Okay. It does sometimes require changes in behaviors. It's not like, oh, just spend an hour, clean it out and it's done. Sometimes we have to repattern and reprogram. This is when we get into the other 10 strands, because the other 10 strands, like what I've recently been discovering even more of, is that what these other 10 strands have is even templates, new operating systems for 5D and beyond. So for example, this was so amazing what happened to me. One of the things I've known about myself is that I have a challenge with, or have had a challenge with, how to teach somebody in my business, my work, how to hand over the stuff to them and teach them to do it the way that I do it so that I can be happy with their work. And I've been learning how to teach somebody to do the work for me so that I don't have to do it and I can do other things, right? It's just part of being an entrepreneur and a business person. And I finally realized, like, it came to my consciousness, there's a template for this in my DNA. And I had to identify what the template was and label it. Well, I didn't really, but some part of my consciousness did. And then awaken that template and activate it. And once it was done, it was like, oh, this is all I have to do. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how to do it. I know exactly how to hand this off. And that's what I did. It's like, this is what I mean about templates. So years ago, I got these templates downloaded into me from higher consciousness that basically was going to activate other templates for operating systems in 5D. So for example, another template for operating in 5D and beyond is the template of just glad expectation.
Mm.
Okay, now how do you, that's not even a language in 3D. To live your life gladly expecting. Just, it's not an attachment. It's not expectation from an old paradigm, like I expect you to do this. It's a whole new operating system. It's just like you're living with the expectation that things are just going to be basically optimistic, but not even that extreme. It's like you're just gladly expecting. It's an operating system. It's so basic and yet so powerful for the way we're going to function in our new reality. And so we're, as the early bird light workers, you know, front runners, so to speak, we're awakening it in us and claiming it. And as we anchor it into our bodies and live our lives that way, enough of it becomes physical, again, in the physical world, that now it's just there's that ripple effect. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, right? And so it's actually doing the exact opposite of what the world is doing in many ways, anything
Yeah.
that is not love and light, right? So, you know, it brings us all back to love. And this is embodiment when we can choose the love angle, the higher choice. That is embodiment. That is
Yeah.
Christ consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing too, I wanted to say is I was noticing this the other day, because I don't know what it was that like made me really think about it, but I think it was because I was in the car and my car that I had Sirius radio on or something. I don't know. I heard a commercial or something. And I remember thinking, oh, I know what it was. I was listening to something that was inviting you to go to a school to learn how to invest in stocks. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And it was a very, 3D way of talking. And I thought, isn't it interesting, even in this sort of info advertisement, whatever, they're talking about how humans are taught to think that it's hard to invest and to do stocks and bonds and trading. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's a recipe. That's what they were saying. And I thought, isn't that brilliant? Even in 3D, they're talking about how humans have been trained to believe something is hard when it's not. That's their positioning. And it occurred to me while I was listening to that, how brainwashed we have been to conform and to believe that the reality that we have existed in is the only reality there is. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about leveling up out of 3D and anchoring into 5D and expanding our consciousness, because we literally have to come to a new kind of consciousness now where we say that reality is the fake one. That reality is the artificial one. That reality is the box of conformity. Like everything about that old 3D paradigm, it's not that you can't take some of it with you. Of course, we're going to take a lot of it with us, that what works, what really does serve the highest and most benevolent best of all, that still gets to come. It's not like any wrongness to that, but that whole paradigm, it's fake. It's the fake reality. In fact, when I was on the boat in Arkansas, I was talking to some of the people on the boat, and we were, we're in the crystalline waters, and here they're asking me about the retreat and that I led with the crystals and everything. And there was a lot of conversation about how much is too much woo-woo for you. And I was like, well, I think it's really funny when people talk about the woo-woo, because I'm thinking in my community, where no amount of woo-woo is too woo-woo for us, we're all happy. We're all getting healthier. We're all living better lives. We're all going on retreats. We're all bonding. We're all sharing in love. We're all expanding consciousness. We're all coming up with world solutions. We're all excited. We're all optimistic. Most of us aren't really that sick. And even if we are, we're finding solutions to heal it and resolve it together. What's so woo-woo about that? Like, big deal. So, okay, we play with some crystals. Like, what? I don't get it. Like, in that old reality, everybody's sick, everybody's broke, everybody's afraid. People are pissed off at their world leaders. Everybody's fighting. They think that sickness and disease is normal. They think that it's normal to have problems with your government. I mean, that's normal to them. Like, that's not normal to me. That's not normal. So, I don't know. I just think like that whole paradigm has to be looked at even in a new way. Mm-hmm. Not with judgment, but just the recognition that it is not normal. It is no longer real. It is an artificially created reality. And we call that, by the way, a false timeline. So, because the true organic timeline, there is one true organic ascension timeline. And that's what we're on here. And that's where the entire humanity gets to awaken. And the only thing that will stop them from that is if they choose so much density that they have to bifurcate, separate, because they're no longer compatible with these frequencies. So we sort of don't really witness that. We only witness us dropping our baggage off and clearing and resolving ourselves as we level up. We don't know what gets dropped off into other timelines. But there is one true, real, organic ascension timeline. That is for the awakening of humanity. And on this timeline, it requires us to look at that paradigm and say, that's artificial. And it's a false timeline. It's not even real anymore. It's the old paradigm. And everybody else is leveling up into this new timeline where woo-woo, there's no such thing as woo-woo. This is the real. This is the real.
Yes.
I just set out my diatribe there.
Well, it's a connection within. It's a connection to the heart. That is the name of the game.
Yes.
And that is the vibration. And through that heart, we connect to the greater mind, and we really do slow down. And we get creative when we're in that heart center. Yes. And that's really how we do New Earth. New Earth is a frequency. We've heard from the Arcturians, and this is what it means to live it. And I love the work that you do in the DNA. It really is just looking at those triggers and all those areas of shutting off from love.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like for example, let's identify some more things in the DNA that's really helpful for people. Like, one of the key things in the DNA that's a corrupted program is divide and conquer.
Yeah, so, well, that's huge. That program is running huge.
Massive on planet Earth. But the more of us, because it's such an easy one to identify, even the more of us that clear it out, the more we can also see how the new paradigm is up leveling from our clearing of that. So, for example, you're seeing more and more of this. There's a new TV show called Mixed-ish. That's a good example of how the mainstream is integrating that. It's now more mainstream to integrate, to be integrated with all the different colors, races, species. That's all unity consciousness coming in, but that's also the divide and conquer program being cleared out. Another one is a really big one that's in the first two strands of DNA that's completely corrupted is sexual misery programs. So sexual misery programs in the first two strands of DNA there's totally corrupted. It's all about sexual shame, sexual confusion, part of the normalization on Earth of that it's normal to be so gender confused that you would, slice off a part of your anatomy to become a different gender. That's sexual misery programming. So the healing and the resolution of that is more of this, like this new trend of like, I can love anyone in any body, doesn't matter the gender, the age, the color. I can love anyone. That is gender neutrality, right? And we know in the higher realms, gender neutrality is extremely, that's really a lot of the star family races don't identify as a gender necessarily. They have both equal balance of masculine and feminine, and they're very gender neutral. It's more about sharing and exchanging sexual energy or some form of energy that evokes pleasure in the body, free from shame, free from guilt, free from particular gender identification, right? This is what we're leveling up into. Does that make sense?
Well, this has been a year of leveling up on many levels.
Yeah.
Everything in our life. It's really crazy. New systems. It's like we want to redo everything.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, because when we're here, we just had the equinox, and it seemed as if everything that was not in balance and harmony at a higher level seemed a little friction, like I said. So isn't that just amazing?
Yes, yes, yes. And I just want to caveat, because there's no wrongness in any of this stuff of the old paradigm. There's no wrongness about being gender confused or sexually confused. None of that is wrong or bad. It's that it's old paradigm. It's that we have played with it so long that it's no longer, it's just not resonant with what we're creating and who we're becoming. So when I say something like about, being uncomfortable in our bodies or with our sexuality or having shame or guilt or suicidal tendencies or any of that, there's no wrongness. It's just, again, I know you know this, and I think our tribe knows this. It's not a bad thing. It's just more like, yeah, do I want to play with that, or do I want to create that in the future? And the answer is probably no. Wouldn't I like to just love the body I'm in so wholly and completely, in so much full and complete acceptance of this vehicle, that whatever I want to do with it, however I want to transform it, I can, through the awakening of whatever's dormant in there within me? Yes. And what do I want to do moving forward with that, from a place of wholeness and fullness, rather than from a place of incompleteness or whatever that is? So that's really what I'm saying. One other piece that was just lighting up about this too is with the DNA and activating that dormant potential is also just the recognition of the aging programs, death and dying programs. Those we're also learning how to untangle and unravel. So all aging is linked into linear time, and there's aging programs and implants in the DNA. There's multi-layers to this. I haven't uncovered it all. I've been working on this for a couple of years, more than a couple of years. But that stuff is going to be resolved largely too, because linear time is a whole new thing. Like, one of the things I had asked for going through that Lion's Gate was I wanted to experience the richness and the fullness of the spaciousness of no time, non-time. Because prior to that, I was noticing so much of the constriction of linear time. And I had been playing for a long time and teaching a lot of people in my community how to bend time and change time, because we know time is not a constant, right? We know that. Time, 24 hours is not 24 hours. It's such a joke when somebody says, oh, you've got the same 24 hours. We all have the same 24 hours. It's like, no, we don't. No. Sorry, not true. That's an old paradigm. Time is not linear. Time is not constant. So I wanted to experience more of that spaciousness. And that is literally what I'm experiencing now, because I asked for it and I asked to understand and unpack it more. Nonetheless, the aging process is linked to linear time. The death and disease and dying and sickness programs are linked to linear time. So when you hear people say things like, well, when you get old, That just happens. You know, when you get old, your body starts running down. When you get old, okay, that's all aging programs. It's not really true. It's just programs coded into the DNA, the first two strands that can be cleared. And I get it. It's way deeper than I'm fully conscious of yet. But that stuff is not part of our future. It doesn't mean that aging will go away necessarily, but I just do know, maybe it does. I don't have all the answers on that yet. I'm still unpacking it and discovering it. But I do know that our aging process is going to completely change. I absolutely know that the way we die, I don't think this is new information. To me, it's not. The way we choose to die or transition or cross over is going to completely change. We are going to transition and cross over based on what we choose, how we choose, when we choose, the way we choose, in a very conscious way. But we have to be free from all of this, including fear of death. I mean, if you're in a struggle, if you're wrestling, if you're in resistance, push, pull, tension, no, you're entangled.
Okay. Wow. Okay. You brought up a lot there. So yes, New Earth is a frequency and we cannot take our baggage with it. So
Right.
thank you. And so it's literally in our DNA. And so you've actually got all kinds of programs and activations that work with
Yes.
DNA. We'll talk about your special offer in a moment, but that's what that stuff is all about. So we really can do this work as we go to sleep and do it on a daily basis or whatever. But you mentioned something there about the whole, the programs, there are reports coming in of youthing. And
Oh,
when
yeah.
we do the work on dream yoga, sleep yoga, that is the continuity, the continuation of consciousness. And that's really what we're talking about here. So it's really quite fascinating, this whole journey, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Liberating.
One of the fun things to do is to program yourself while you sleep. So
Yeah.
there's another really fun tool you can play with when you understand crystals and sacred geometry, about putting stargates up over your own bed in your own house, and how you can work with stargates while you sleep, how you can reprogram and recalibrate during your sleep time.
Tell us,
Anyway,
tell us, tell us.
well, I mean, it's just another thing about working with crystals, like, because crystals, if you know how to use crystals, like, for example, in your bed, in your corners of your bed, and how you know how to connect the crystals, it's grid work. It's basic grid work with your own house or with your own bed or with your own sleeping. You can connect these crystals and create stargates over your own house and over your own bed, and you program them. How you program them? They're programmable. That's why our future star family versions of us program these crystals, and our past versions of us program these crystals. That's what we were talking about earlier. Well, we have that ability to do that too. So when you know how to program because the crystal isn't just giving, it's a receiving tool as well. It's an exchange. It's a vehicle of communication. So we can program communication into it, and we can extract communication from it, right? So if you're creating crystalline stargates around your bed, and you're creating a stargate portal, you kind of have to know what you're doing here. You don't want to just connect to just anything, because everything exists. I mean, everything exists. So you only want what's benevolent. That's important. Just even you saying that, only that which is benevolent and helpful. But that stuff that can be done, that stuff's in the package, by the way. A lot of how to do that with more detail is in the package. I know.
Well, it's very interesting because we had a question yesterday about how, we can protect our home, or I've even had an experience, Lori, where we were in the foothills of Boulder and there was a fire coming literally up over the ridge. And my cosmic mama, Shirley Irene, she told me to grab my wand if I had a wand. And I do, I have it over here. It's this giant selenite wand.
Yeah.
Literally held it up and connected it to the cosmos, the great central sun, and we connected it to the crystal core of Mother Earth. And actually, we created a firewall. And do you know that when the slurry planes came over, that was the actual ridge, the firewall ridge, to me, I
Incredible.
just know that as truth inside, and
Yes,
it's really powerful.
absolutely. That is
So,
so powerful,
and
Loren.
even in a flood, we had a flood a few years later, and then we were in our neighbor's house and connecting people, all four of us, in an octahedron with crystals, and there was a solution that came as soon as we hooked up our group. Our neighbor
Yes.
got a phone call from a friend who said he had a sump pump to pump water from the flood out of his basement, so they were able to save a lot of the drywall down there.
Yeah.
That is like magic, isn't it?
It really is. Do you know, years and years and years ago, when Hurricane Sandy came through in New York, I remember doing, with very little, like not as advanced as I am now, knowledge, like doing a protection around my parents' house. And they live right on the water in New York where Hurricane Sandy hit. All of the houses around them, all of the neighborhood was flooded. Every home had thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. And my parents' house was untouched. And I know even here in Florida, there have been a couple of hurricanes that came by. I wasn't here for the last one. I left early because I had the crystal retreat. But
See, that's divine timing.
right, I was out. I wasn't even here. But it was amazing what happened too. It was like I just called up the airlines, like, should I go? We'll get you on this line. Boom, go. Okay. It was like, But anyway, I can't tell you how many times, like at least 2 times during 2 hurricanes here in Florida, the hurricanes were going, and I'm on a telesummit with people in Florida, local people, and I'm like, we're keeping our power. I'm not losing my power. I got my power. Because when you understand that these hurricanes are, all of these weather patterns are the consciousness of the community that lives there, working through that energy that community has had in that area, and that you as a conscious being, if you are resolved on those issues, you don't have to have any of that experience hit you personally. And then if you use and claim your godhood, this is claiming your godhood, to say, I am the creator and the experiencer in my reality. I am creator. I am witness. I am all that is here. And in this moment of being all that is, I now respectfully request and respectfully command here now that this house is protected, this home is protected and safe, and that only good and benevolent things shall come in, through, and around it. Like right there, you could use that. Like this is one little example, right? And I claim my power. I own my power. I have my power. There's no need for any power adage here because I am full of power. Like that's what we were doing. Like all of the neighborhoods, well, my neighborhood, actually my community, I protected my whole community and my whole neighborhood, but neighborhoods around us, they didn't have so much good luck. Like I did what I could for my, what I knew to do, but it was interesting to see how completely untouched, unbothered was my home and my house and my power. And yet, Trump's golf course just 10 minutes down the road was knocked out during one of those hurricanes. So anyway, you know what I'm saying?
And this is the alignment, the centeredness that we must carry, that the love that we present in every moment, in the face of everything. It will keep us in the right place. It will move us from that reality over here. I do agree with you. My husband and I, we love to go sailing, and we literally, we just do it I do it as a joke with him to kind of open him up a little bit more. And he's totally open to it. And now he's a believer. We can call on the wind, we can call on the rain, and we know this, right? And so if that being known to all of us, when we see chemtrails, if there are some who are still seeing chemtrails and not feeling too good about them, play that game. Be in this center of love and hold our hand up to the chemtrails. Unconditional love. And then wait a few minutes. You can even look away and then watch what happens. Right? This is the importance of this vibrational shift that we're making to New Earth. It is a vibrational shift.
Yes.
So all of that, and you trigger it into the DNA and you work with the DNA. And so it's simply this return to love in a way, and this centeredness and this heart space.
Yes. And I love what you just said about the chemtrails. I want to tell you something about fracking that I think you'll love. I don't know if I said this to you.
Well, it's in my neighborhood, literally.
Fracking. because I know it's
and the local court, and then I can start to get all upset because even the courts are keeping the old paradigm in place. And anyway, go ahead, tell me about
but let me
fracking.
tell you what fracking really is.
Okay. Is it
Fracking,
an individual?
no, fracking is the intention to upset the crystal grid, not about gas. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
They want to upset the crystal grid because they know that if they can get into the earth and break up the crystal grid structure, that they can, it's a conspiracy tactic. It absolutely is. I'm sorry if sometimes that stuff comes out, but that's what it is. So you understand that the issue with fracking, in reality, the solution to fracking from a crystalline consciousness, this is what I got, is to resolve issues associated with the fear of the 5G grid and the belief systems, etc., associated with this being a wrongness. Because on another level, that 5G grid, what are all those antennas? Our psychic knowledge, our connecting with higher, just think of it, that's our brain, our antennas. Like there's a crystal on my head. This is the representation in the physical world from a mystic's point of view.
And again, if you keep your vibration in that way, right, in flow with it, I mean, there's even martial arts that go with it, not resisting it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know too much about martial arts, but I get that conceptually. But as we are willing to acknowledge that part of us that has lived on timelines where our earth was so upset and abused, and as we embrace more and more of the 5D grid, as we resolve much of the issue of this old paradigm that's conspiratorial, we will come to see that fracking is also removed. Because the truth is, come on, I mean, it's so obvious now that free energy is our future. It is so obvious that all of the findings of Nikola Tesla are being restored to us. Already, eBay's campus is using a lot of that, Google's campuses. I mean, I may be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they're already using free energy boxes where they're just generating free energy. So maybe someone can validate if that's absolutely accurate, but I'm pretty sure it is. And I absolutely do know that that is our future. Free energy is being restored to humanity. So all this fracking stuff and all this digging in earth, it's all old paradigm. It's not part of our future.
Good. Hold the vision of New Earth. That is New Earth visionaries. And no matter what we see, we hold that vision of New Earth and we come up with solutions in what we as services can offer in our world. And so never give up hope. Be the eternal optimist.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's even more than even, I just want to say this as somebody who, you know, I have been sometimes accused of being like overly optimistic or a little ungrounded. And I mean, I get that. I'm a Sag rising. So Sages do, like, a lot of times we're accused of that. But let me say, as a light worker,
we need you.
And as a star seed, a true, look, some people resonate with the word star seed, but I mean, I had a real induction experience, a real braiding of my star version of me with my human version. That transformation that happened for me was so radical. So I can't not know what I know. And from my perspective, there are those of us here who have that an awareness that we're not going through the tunnel. We're already on the other side, saying we are the light. And this is where we end up. Like, there's nothing shakeable in this knowing. There's nothing you can shake that will unshake me from my knowing that this is the light and we are the light and we hold this light and this is where we're all ending up. So it's not like, for me, I don't perceive it to be this, like, okay, let's be optimistic. That's a Sagittarian side of me that does want to be optimistic, but no, the star seed part of me, the braided star seed part of me that already knows that as fact. That's not a part of me that's being optimistic. That's a part of me that knows where we're going because I'm already there. So when you understand timelines, you know, there's all these different timelines. You have this one true organic timeline where everybody gets to wake up. And then you have these like secondary timelines, which are like, okay, if you want to have an experience that's still compatible here, you can still have an experience. So for example, your experience that you have here might be one where you're like really just so upset, you're being forced to have immunizations. You're on a tertiary, secondary timeline that's an offshoot where you still have to work through issues with immunizations, forced vaccines. You're plugged into that reality because you haven't resolved that, because maybe somewhere in some other timeline you experienced the plague and you haven't worked through that issue, so you have to work through that. It's just an example. Well, that's a tertiary timeline. But from where I am, there is no forced immunizations in our future. There's no force. There's no coercion of any kind. There's freedom and liberation and conscious consent, which is not the same thing as unconscious consent, which is happening with forced immunizations. That's part of the organic timeline, but it's secondary because not everybody has to be playing with that at this time. It's just if you haven't resolved those issues. Same thing, another example is money. So money's a big one because money, wealth, prosperity, that's an issue for the collective to deal with. And it's affecting the collective because everybody uses some form of currency and currency exchange, more or less, if you live on planet Earth. But even that, if you're dealing with issues of lack or poverty or not enoughness, okay, so maybe you're having to be affected by financial collapse or financial struggles in one way, or economic issues. But on this organic timeline, when you're resolved of that's not an issue you have to play with anymore at all. So my point is to me, star seeds, for those of us, early wavers, most of us aren't sitting there going, oh, this is what we all have to become. We're saying, no, this is where it already is. Just come on, it's here already. And we recognize not everybody is here yet, but this is where we're all going to basically end up, and then create something all new, brand new, so much better, which is already starting for so many of us. Does that make, I think that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. It really shares the process of moving out of the old, literally by our choices, and creating the new. And we're here to do that. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, if you, our viewers and audience, have a question for Lori, you are invited to join us for our after party. This is a place on our Zoom room where you can come in and share your video screen if you wish, and actually ask your question or share your New Earth shift. This is really a membership, a New Earth Creator membership, where you are supported in New Earth creations, vibrational support, and actually meeting kindred souls as well who share the New Earth shift. So register at bit.ly/QCTV membership and join us in today's after party. It is starting right after this live stream broadcast. You're going to get a link to the Zoom audience, and you can join us right there for that. And I also want to share Lori's special offer. Lori, this is a way that people can actually do what we were talking about in this program today. They can actually go in and identify these areas of their own DNA, and they can actually reprogram and rewrite and bring in higher levels of DNA. So share with us the program that you have.
Okay. All right. So yeah, well, we're going to go through the package, right?
Yes, the special offer. Actually, by the way, that is at the special offer link on this webpage, and you're welcome to follow along and see these programs. And Lori, people use these, I mean, you could use them when you go to sleep, but it's best to really sit and be present and aware as well, right?
Well, I say the activations always work, and they work whether you're awake or asleep, but the purpose is to become more and more conscious. So if you're awake and you're participating, your consciousness is going to serve you better because you're more conscious,
Yes.
present in the physical body. But they work even when you sleep. And I mean, I especially think a lot of the activations are great if you do them more than once, because let's say we do a clearing on an addiction program clearing, let's just say, or let's say we do a clearing on something having to do with the joy of life and living the sweetness of life. And let's just say in your family lineage, you have, let's say you have weight issues, body weight issues. So you might get the activation for the sweetness or the joy of life, but you might have a belief system in there that sugar has power over you. And so the joy of life and the sweetness of life might get hooked back in by this other program, sugar has power over me, for example. And that belief system needs to be cleared. But if you're fully conscious when you get it, you might actually get a ping in your conscience, like, oh my God, sugar, I think sugar has power over me. I just realized I've been using sugar to have the sweetness of life and to enjoy the sweetness of life. I just never realized how I've been giving my power to sugar. Okay, so even in this case then, even though that wasn't necessarily directly cleared, your consciousness, the fact that you were consciousness, you can suddenly be like, oh yeah, I don't need to give my power to sugar anymore. So that nudge resolved it. And because you were conscious of it, or maybe the second or third time you listen to it, oh, it clears it for you because you suddenly became conscious and let it go. Make sense?
Absolutely. Beautiful.
But if you're sleeping, you might not necessarily get that. That's why even sometimes it's good to listen to more than once. It just dislodges things.
Awareness. I mean, awareness is a big part of it.
Right. But it always works, and it works the first time too. Like even if just whatever you do, it's always helping. Okay, but so this first package is a dormant DNA package, cellular clearing, and lots of energy healing and lots of channeling. So it's a 2-hour video of the item of this. And there was channeling. This one has Green Tara, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, lots of divine goddess channeling. Jesus, Yeshua came in. There's channeling from the archangelic realm, including who lovingly refer to themselves as the 3 M's, Michael, Metatron, Melchizedek. Various star family races came in and intergalactic beings, universal laws. I love the laws. I love working with the laws so much. So awesome. I would love to talk about that a little more, but I'll stay with the package for now. When the laws come in, because this is really where incredible power comes in to change the world for the better. Because when the laws agree, we can change planetary, we can do stuff for the whole planet. When the laws all say yes, because they govern the reality we exist in, whether we know they exist or not. So universal laws, they're on a 6th dimensional plane of existence. Okay, Mother Earth came in during these 2 hours, channeled information, and we got information from the animal kingdom. Oh, I'm sorry, that's almost 3 hours, a 3-hour event, and that's in video. So that's the first package item. And that video, by the way, it's hosted on YouTube, but it's private, so no one could find it. You know, it's not a free item. It's not free. It's not free sourced. It had it's got a monetary value of $222. Okay, next one. This is when we get into more of the crystalline kingdom. So stuff that we kind of barely covered today. Atlantis, the crystalline grid, the 5D grid, the 3D grid, the old grid, the star family races, the Atlantean timelines, the Lemurian timelines. This is covered in that. That's a 2-hour video, 2 hours and 15-minute video. And there's a monetary value of $111. And then item 3 is an extension on this, where we go more fully into connecting, communicating, and healing with the crystals and the crystalline realm and the crystalline grid. This is a video, and this is a 2-hour and 25-minute video. So you'll learn more about that. And also you learn about the Christ consciousness, the crystalline realms, how the role they're playing in that, and the star family races, how they relate to the crystals. So this will fill in a lot of blanks for you about what we discussed today, especially if some of it seemed, a lot of times the way I talk, I'm saying things that I know maybe but maybe for some people you need more of like the building blocks of it. So this will fill in all of that. It'll add a lot more depth to what we were able to cover today.
Yeah, it goes deep.
It goes deeper. Then item 4 is more about the crystalline realm. Talks a lot about Atlantis, Ascension, and the star family races, the consciousness of crystals, the Christos of the crystals, the Christos, the Christ consciousness, using the crystals to activate your DNA. Crystals as gatekeepers, grid workers, record keepers. This is in that, and that's a 2-hour private video as well. Then item number 5. Okay, this is the time trap. Oh, this is where we go into linear time, clearing linear time. So this is where we really talk about this idea of linear time.
Mhm.
It's just, it's such a, anyway, it's a trap. Linear time is a time trap if you're ascending into 5D, because you can't be functioning from linear time in 5D. You will just be a stress monkey, nonstop, endless stress of trying to fit everything in to this idea of 24 hours, which no longer exists. It's really crazy making to try to fit into 24-hour and to believe in the old system of time. And of course, if you're working on issues related to disease, like there's a lot of stuff on this, on the death, dying, disease, clearing, as it's related to linear time. That unpacks a lot more of that, like artificial time, natural timing, divine timing. You will learn in this pack, in this item, which is literally, I think it's a 3-hour, let me see. The first part is the content class teachings. That's 1 hour and 50 minutes. The second is Q&A, 60 minutes. And the third part of this is 60 minutes.
Almost 4.
Yeah, the third part is a meditation and healing, clearing, unplugging us from linear time, clearing and resolving that entanglement with linear time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's what this goes into. You'll hear a lot about, you'll learn a practice in this of playing with time too, extending time, expanding time, shortening time. I talk about how once I had to go into, where do you go to, DMV.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's like a line, and I'm like number 132, and I'm like, oh, no, this won't do.
Yeah, no.
I close my eyes, I go into like a little meditation. I'm like, we're going to take 3 hours and shorten it to like 10 minutes. I come out of my meditation, I open my eyes, and my number is literally a few numbers away. Within a few minutes, I'm like, okay, there's my number.
Yay.
Right? Playing with time. So you learn about that, and you will definitely learn how you can do that in there.
And also, magic does not happen when you are in time. When we take sacred trips, like when you go to the crystal and the lake, magic happens when you can get outside of time and not have those boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really about the 0 point, right? Coming into 0 point, because that's where we're claiming our godhood. So
yes.
this does definitely go into that. Time stretching, divine timing, the whole thing. 0 point, no time, all of that. Okay. Then item 6 is the mind control one. So this is valued at 333. This is all about mind control. So let's understand, I just want to because we didn't touch on this, just the very basics of mind control, to understand, for example, with the pharmaceutical drug companies, what's happening. What they have is, I don't know if I talked to you about this. I know I've talked about this before, but they basically, a great example of mind control in pharmaceutical drug companies is the Track A, Track B program, and it's done on purpose. The Track A program is, let's play some nice music and butterflies, and let's show people playing football and softball and having a wonderful time, and everything feels so good and beautiful. And that's Track A. And isn't life so good now that you're on Claritin Clear? Everything's wonderful. And then they run Track B, which is a very low frequency, low vibe track. So your first track is you're in an alpha state. They bring you into an alpha brainwave state, and then they drop you down into a very deep, low beta. May cause death, may cause suicide, may cause whatever. And your frequency is being jarred vibrationally. Now, the average person's completely unconscious of the fact that this is happening, but their body's being put in 2 different frequencies at once, and it's creating an extreme jarring energetically. literally upsetting the frequency vibration of the person. Nobody knows they're being brainwashed this way. And by the way, in there's all these kind of programs that are saying, call your doctor, call your doctor, call your doctor, ask your doctor, ask your doctor. And this is the game of mind control. This is just one example. Okay. This package item is all about freeing and liberating yourself from mind control. And it gives you real valid tools to free and liberate yourself, because part of freeing yourself from 3D really is going to require us to look at that. You know, I realize that, you know, if you're just hanging out in the law of attraction movement, you might not totally want to do that, but that's what this is. Okay. Now, item 7. Item 7 is a guided meditation to manifest and materialize your best life ever. It's a wonderful meditation. I did this on my Sacred Crystal retreat with everybody. They loved it. You will love it too. It's an easy, fun meditation about really stepping into your reality in 5D, really enjoying your life wholly, fully, and completely from a 5D reality, consciously creating as a God being embodied the reality you choose. And it's a lovely meditation. You'll love it. Then item 8 is another meditation about releasing roadblocks and entanglements, energetic density. I mean, to me, you can never have enough meditations because there's so many different kinds and they all do different things. This is a really wonderful meditation to go to sleep to or to wake up to. It's a 30-minute meditation. Item 9 is a sacred government call. It's a 60-minute meditation for light workers, star seeds, way showers. This is really, just from listening to this, you will learn how effective you can be as a God incarnate creator being, embodying how you can make change for the better on planet Earth. This is all about service and contribution to the greater good of humanity. It's a meditation where you're actively engaged in creating new Earth and what kind of the rules are, but also because the main rule is in service to the greater good with harm to none, right? Highest and most benevolent, best, harm to none. That's the main rule. But yeah, in any case, you also get to claim there are certain like compensations. When you know that you're a light worker in service to the greater good of humanity, it's like the waters will part for you when you start claiming this right in the higher realms. And you become, for lack of a better word, there are certain forms of protection afforded to you, but you have to kind of know a little bit of how to do that. So that's what that is about. It's a beautiful call, beautiful meditation. And then item 10 is, this is an extra bonus really. It's a post-eclipse just through the end of the calendar year of 2019. People will love this because it's really what's going on Earth. What happened post-eclipse? What happened even through we just had the equinox, and what is going to go on for us as first wavers and second wavers waking up through the end of the year, because we know 2020 is the third wave corridor. 2020, 2021, massive changes are coming for humanity. And it's time for, this is our final integration, because we're like basically through it in my mind. Well, we don't know what's around the corner, but this really reveals a lot more because it's channeled. You'll love it. 90-minute call. Okay. Then some other extra bonuses is extra bonus 11 is just really about reconnecting with your soul family and your star family races. It does also talk about the crystalline kingdom and the star family beings, our star family races, and our soul family here on Earth. It really is a lot about reunion, connection, and finding our tribe. And then the extra bonus 12 is so awesome. So this is just a quick 10-minute MP3 I did on my birthday as a gift to my community. And it's really about what happens on your Son of God day, on your birthday, and really claiming your most potent gifts during your Son of God birthday, how to use and work with the power of the Son of God on the day of your birth. And you will love that. It's fun. It's easy. It's playful. it was a gift to my community and tribe, and you will love it. So anyway, that is the package. And that package is valued at over $1,400. We're doing it, we're offering it through your summit today at 133, which means everybody's getting to save over 1,100, 1111, something like that. Right?
That's a lot of great tools, a lot of great teachings in there. Going deep with Lori Spagna. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Again,
Yeah.
check out that special offer on the link on this webpage that is available for everyone in immediate download. Cool, Lori. Thank you so much. Really, I love the work that you do and the service that you offer. This is our world of new earth leaders stepping in here. And I thank everyone for listening because you are a new earth leader. Whether you know it or not, you are a new earth leader. So, Lori, thank
Well,
you.
can I just say one other thing about the package too, Loren, is that I know it's a lot of content. Sometimes, a lot of content, it's a lot, but you have plenty. There's no rush to listen to it.
Yeah,
It's
take
one
your
of those
time.
things, for me, when I'm listening to stuff, or if I'm ever, watching a video or whatever, I tend to do it while I'm either making dinner or, like when I'm cleaning the house, if I'm happen to be cleaning the house or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like, you don't have to rush. You don't have to feel overwhelmed. A lot of the stuff, the meditations, yes, those are great to do without multitasking. And there's some great meditations in there, but some of it is content that you can just multitask and be listening, and you're absorbing it. And, just like we've heard this a million times, it's vibratory. So even by listening, you do come into vibrational resonance with the information. You level up through vibrational resonance. Half the time, that's the greatest gift of all of these packages, is when you're meeting with someone who's teaching or sharing at a very high level. Just being in vibrational resonance with it is up leveling your consciousness to that frequency, which is one of the greatest gifts of any package that you buy, that you resonate, whether it's mine or someone else's through Loren's Summit, or through, like this new group that you have, this community that you're doing. Like, that's coming into resonance with soul, family, tribe, and that stuff is priceless.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you do and the tools that you use and just stepping up to, and all of the new earth leaders who are watching. It's really great. We thank you for your time, and it's quite an investment. It's an investment in your soul, and we thank you for that. All right, so we are going to say goodbye, and I'm inviting our audience to join us for the after party. We're going to hang around a little bit with Lori, ask your question, and share your new earth shift. That is our community. And there's a bunch of good bonuses and things in there too, like the healing high frequencies of plant music. We're going to be doing plant music meditations for our members too. So Lori, thank you, thank you, thank you, goddess. If
Thank you so
anyone,
much.
yeah, well, girl, if anyone is out there and wants to do a retreat with Lori and me in
I want to do a retreat.
Arkansas on Lake Washita, send us an email. Send me an email and we'll put that together. It is absolutely fantastic to be in those crystal waters. It is life transforming, isn't it?
It really is. I'll say, I know, are we officially in our new group yet, or we have a 5 minute or what?
Not yet. So
Oh, well, let
everyone,
me just say about those waters. Can I say?
yes, we're still on with our live
All
stream.
right. Every person, I had over 30 people on my retreat. Every
Yeah.
single person, we have a private Facebook group and stuff. Every person has had such dramatic transformations. They're all of them are feeling like their lives are up leveling and changing so much. And I do know we provided the container, but I know that it's the crystals and the crystalline bed. It's just incredible. So.
Yes, and so I think we'll be planning it for springtime next year as the weather. We want to be in the water, so we're kind of missing that right now. So we'll be in the water in springtime of 2020. How beautiful. Lori, we'll be in touch on that, okay, girl?
Yes, for
Yes.
sure. Love that.
Awesome. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to dance our way to the cosmic heart now. And if you want to join us in the after party, please do become a member of our New Earth Creator community. This is your home. We are supported in our New Earth creations. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Namaste.
I'm gonna get some better light bulbs.
Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Galey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com.